The Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform calls this public hearing to order. It is now 8:30 a.m. on Thursday, November 15, 2018. Present with me this morning are the Acting Speaker, Therese Terlahi, Senator Frank Aguon, and Senator Will Castro. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive testimony on the executive appointment of Mr. Robert C.A. Perron to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency Board of Directors, and also the executive appointment of Ms. Florida M. Sanchez, did I pronounce that? Sanchez to serve as a member of the Guam Environmental Protection Agency Board of Directors. And we will also be hearing Bill number 364-34 COR, introduced by Senator Frank B. Aguon, relative to property in Talofofo. Notice of this morning's public hearing was provided electronically to senators, stakeholders, and the local media on November 7, 2018, and November 13, 2018, thus meeting the requirements of the Open Government Law. The committee will continue to receive written testimony until today, 4 p.m. on Thursday, November 15, 2018. Please address testimony to Senator Thomas Siada, Chairperson, Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform, and can be dropped to the mailbox here at the legislature or email to the office of senatorada.org. We'll begin then with the what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and call forward both Mr. Perron and Ms. Sanchez jointly to start our confirmation hearing on these two appointees. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the opportunity to make whatever opening remarks you might have, and I'll let you decide amongst yourself who goes first. And is that, how do you pronounce that first name, please?
It is Florida.
Florida, okay.
I am called Flory, because my mom is Flo, so
yes.
You can greet me as that. But good morning and hafa day. Thank you for, again, this opportunity to see if we will be renewed for a member as a Guam EPA board. Just for history, I have been on the board for probably about 16 years, give or take a year or so. So we've been on it quite a while. But we just are supportive of our administrator and their staff. And we look forward to the work that they do for us. It's quite a bit of work. It's very involved in very many systems, but I do appreciate being on the board and serving in that manner.
Thank you. Mr. Perron?
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Senators. My name is Bob Perron, and I'm here having been nominated to serve a 6th term on the Guam EPA board. I would like to congratulate all of you who are re-elected to the legislature and wish good luck to those of you who are moving on to other endeavors. First, a little bit about my background. I've lived on Guam since 1979 and have grown to love and appreciate the island, its people, and the environment. I originally came to Guam having accepted a job to work as a field engineer at the DoD satellite tracking station at Northwest Field. I've been married to the former Donna Regis from the Regis family of Aguon Heights for the past 29 years. She's here with me along with our son Kyle, nope, maybe not Kyle, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law Eddie and Nanette. So I'm proud to have been a member of the Guam EPA Board of Directors for the past 16 years. In that time, a number of important initiatives have been implemented which have served to protect the environment and the people of Guam. The agency has implemented a series of rules and regulations for pesticides entering our island and a certification requirement for individuals using these products. Rules and regulations for underground storage tanks have been promulgated, which have allowed our agency to take a bigger role in tracking and inspecting these tanks. Fee schedules have been approved, which allow these departments to generate funds to assist in running these programs. Guam EPA was also instrumental in switching the island over to ultra-low sulfur diesel, which has contributed to cleaner air and less diesel emissions. I was fortunate enough to have chaired this subcommittee that worked on this in conjunction with GPA, the military, and other stakeholders. In order to promote transparency and to give citizens a place to go for information, we're putting as much information as possible into our website. We're putting information on the website gathered in the Agent Orange investigation, which is currently in progress, as well as listing notices of violations and the status of the actions taken. In recent years, the agency has increased the amount of training for its employees, including developing a relationship with SWANA, the Solid Waste Association of North America, which is the premier training and certification group for solid waste and recycling in the country. In fact, we've opened a small chapter of SWANA on Guam, which includes Hawaii and everything west of California. This is in no small part due to the efforts of individuals within Guam EPA. The agency has also developed a close working relationship with the California Recycling Association and ESTWAMO, which is the Association of State and Territorial Waste Management Officials, which has benefited our employees and the island. In fact, the ESTWAMO group has elected Conchita from our agency as the incoming vice president and will be the next future president of ESTWAMO. So that's a real accomplishment for Conchita and good for our island and the agency. The agency has also done significant work on the bottle bill and in developing and implementing rules and regulations for the revolving recycling fund, which is still in progress, the revolving recycling fund work. While this has been a slow process, we're confident that these programs will be fully operating in the near future. On a professional level, I'm currently the president of Guam Waste Control and Guam Waste Recycling. Our companies haul solid waste for commercial customers, operates the island's commercial transfer station, receives, sorts, and markets recyclables, and shreds and ships the majority of the waste tires generated in Guam. I have provided testimony to the legislature and various senators in the past in my role as a solid waste professional, primarily in the areas of solid waste management and recycling. I've kept current on issues of solid waste, recycling, and the environment through membership in SWANA, attending multiple conferences annually, and keeping my training and certifications up to date, having been certified in all 10 of the subject areas that SWANA offers. With that, I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to testify and for its consideration of my nomination. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perron, and I apologize, I got ahead of myself. There was some people who did sign up to provide oral testimony on the nominees, so I'm going to go ahead and ask them to step forward and go ahead and do so now. So that's Simon Sanchez and Walter Leon Guerrero from GIPA. So we're going to go ahead, and I'll start with you, Walter.
Good morning, Senator Atta. Again, Senator Castro and Speaker Talai. I'm here to endorse Mr. Perron and Mrs. Sanchez to continue to be, excuse me, to continue to be board members of Guam EPA. Basically, for the last 2 years and 2 months that I've been in this position as administrator of Guam EPA, I've had the support of the board to promote Guam EPA and the work that we've done. Bob has just listed a bunch of things that Guam EPA has done. Some of the things that he's failed to recognize as far as what he's done, the 10 certifications that he has through SWANA, as far as about, and it could still be true, but as far as 6 months ago, he's the only individual in the nation to have all certifications under SWANA. And so that's a big accomplishment not only for Bob personally, but for the information that he can provide Guam EPA. We have numerous employees that have different certifications in SPANA, but nobody, again, has all 10 as Bob does. So he also has a wealth of knowledge to assist us, as well as Ms. Sanchez. Under their guidance and supervision, we've been, this year is the first time in the last, I'd say, 6 years that we've gotten off the high-risk listing from US EPA. And that's a big accomplishment in itself. And again, if it wasn't through their guidance and their support, Guam EPA would not be where we're at right now. And I field any questions that you guys have specifically.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Sanchez?
Thank you, Senator Adam, and thank you, members of the committee, for giving me a chance. I have to admit my two obvious conflicts of interest. Flory is my sister, and Bob is my paree. I'm the godfather of his hopefully soon-to-arrive son, my godson, who, by the way, shot those great commercials for me. Let me also, just personal privilege, I want to first thank Senator Tom Atta. I've served with him on the CCU, and I've been in front of him for many, many, many years, and I'm going to miss you in the legislature. Guam's going to miss you, but Guam's loss is an opportunity for new leadership to step forward, and your opportunity to enjoy Uru now and the fruits of your labor. Senator Aguon, I'm sure you will serve us in many, many ways in the future, and thank you for the service you have rendered. Thank you and congratulations to Senator Nelson and Speaker Terlahi and Senator Castro for your re-election. The list of work remains. I look forward to working with you, and thank you, Senator Castro, for taking down my signs while I was off island during Typhoon U2. It's the kind of collaboration that keeps Guam so very special. I still remember 20 years ago, Flory was the first one that got us into recycling, thinking green, talking to me about energy. She is from Oregon, so she loves her environment. She's committed to it. You see it in the hard work. She has served, like Bob, for 16 years. I have full faith and confidence in her to be able to provide guidance to GIPA. And both of these fine people, you know, they don't get a stipend, but they've been here. And I think that dedication and institutional knowledge is so important to retain, particularly as we bring new leadership to our community after January. As Walt alluded to, Bob is the most experienced and knowledgeable solid waste professional on Guam. I tease him about applying for the job at the Guam Solid Waste Authority because he could run our landfills. But he's in the private sector. I am also affiliated with Guam Waste Control, so we're business partners, but I see his work and his commitment there, his commitment to training and expertise in the private sector, and as you're hearing now, look how many of organizations that have GIPA has now joined that we weren't members of 16 years ago, because Bob has the vision and understanding that solid waste management is one of the most important things we must manage here on Guam. We have some major issues coming up with this new cell that has to get built, how we're going to fund it, this whole issue of should we go into waste to energy, which I think many of us would like to go into. There's challenges of litigation that is before the court that still needs to be resolved, but his expertise on solid waste management is critical to GIPA in helping them advise you and implement the changes that you want. Flory's great with numbers. Glad to, at GWA, we have benefited from their efforts. We used to get about $2 million a year in grants. We now get $8 million a year. And in order to do that, US EPA has to talk with Guam EPA and us, and Guam EPA has to assure them that we are moving towards or achieving compliance. And in this partnership, we've been able to grow the amount of money in federal grants coming to Guam from Guam EPA and US EPA, which of course takes burden and pressure off of the rates that we have to charge ourselves. Flory's been there for 16 years. She's a hardcore Democrat. She still looks at me and my brother, Tony, up there going, what are you guys doing? But she served under a Republican governor. Bob is a Republican. I don't think he's that hardcore, but he's a Republican. And yet he brings the expertise. And I think what appeals to me about both is with our new Democratic governor about to take office. And, you know, the timing is a bit awkward that they're their term happened to expire now. But they're good people. They work hard. They understand the issues. They have tremendous years of institutional knowledge that it would be sad to lose that. Particularly, I know the new administration has some very aggressive thinking on how they want to protect our environment. The Agent Orange issue is huge for all of us to study. And being able to work through the bureaucracy at the federal level to help improve us at the local level at GIPA, Flory and Bob bring that institutional knowledge, experience, and patience and perseverance. They don't have to do this. You know, they do it for free. They do it for the love of Guam. And I think, so that's why I'm here to support their nomination. I hope the body will give them favorable consideration, put them back on Guam EPA. They will help us moving forward. They've helped us in the past, and they'll do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, and also congratulations to you on your re-election to the CCU. So, with that, then, unless anybody has any questions of Mr. Sanchez or Mr. Leon Guerrero, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss them, and we'll open the questions to the two nominees. Okay. All right. So, Speaker.
Thank you for agreeing to serve again. I just wanted to, I guess, thank you also for the 16 years. That's a long time to serve on a board. And I want to ask you then, do you think, I'm very appreciative of the board's efforts and the Guam EPA's efforts to now put everything online so that we can access this. I know that this was partly in response to FOIA requests and the work you have to do to respond to a FOIA. If that information's public anyways, there's no harm, I think, in putting it up online. So I think that's a great idea. I wish all the agencies would do it, and I'm going to try to get them to do it. But for your agency, I'm very happy that that's going to happen. Especially, you know, everyone wants to know, we want to have confidence in Guam EPA that they are responding quickly when, and that actually that, first of all, they want to know that Guam EPA is on top of it, that they know what happened out there, that there were spills, that there were, you know, leaking barrels. And sometimes I think it's just a gap between getting the word out from EPA to the media to the public. And I know that there have been a lot of efforts recently to address that. So I just want to encourage you to please, that's key. You're a regulatory agency. We want to all have trust in you. We want to help you if we can, get the public to help you. I think we used to be able to call up and, you know, do that type of thing. But just, I would just say, keep working on that public partnership that you have to enter into. You have to get the public's trust, and you have to bring them along with what you're doing, because I think they deserve to know everything. And for example, yesterday I kind of leaked it to the media because they were interviewing me, and I was all excited about it. And Walter had told me that they were going to begin the testing for the Agent Orange on Guam. But the media keeps calling me. They want to know all the details. Where are you testing and what's going on? And I keep referring them to the Guam EPA. So I'm just going to ask you, yeah, please get to the media and tell them everything you know so that they can follow you along. I think they want to be proud that our Guam EPA, I know the people who worked there for many, many years, and they've worked very hard. So I always tell the director, please, you've got some very competent people at Guam EPA. Let's show off how competent they are. Get out there and keep talking about them, what they're doing, and yeah, the progress that they're making, the vision that they have, and things like that. Because it's very easy, I think. Guam EPA is one of these agencies where something goes wrong, we're going to all, you know, it's easy to kind of blame them or you know, use them as the scapegoat for everything that went wrong in our environment. But really, yeah, I think you should show off. I'm appreciative of the efforts that you're doing, and I think you should really show those off a lot more. Show your employees how competent they really are. And this has been going on for many, many years. So maybe you know, you do it and then you just say, oh, we did that already. But I'm just saying everything's new. Do it again, right? Anyway, so I want to thank you for your continued wish to serve and wish you the best on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And Before I move on to the next, I understand you've got some off-island EPA guests that are present here today.
Yes, Carl Goldstein is here. Carl, he's the program manager from US EPA for Guam and CNMI. So he's here helping out, and he was at the Agent Orange inspection or sampling yesterday, and he's going to be a real good asset and a person that's going to help us move our agency forward and interface with US EPA on our behalf. And then Walter, of course, is here from the agency, and Connie, and gosh, a whole lineup of people from the agency are here, and we thank them for coming and supporting us.
All right, thank you, and welcome to Guam, Mr. Goldstein. So, Senator Aguon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Perron and Ms. Sanchez. First of all, let me just start off by thanking you for wanting to continue to serve in your capacity, especially in an area where we can already anticipate it's going to present a lot of challenges within the foreseeable near future. And the challenges is, as we increase in population, this is really where my biggest concern would come in. The water aquifer in the north and how we're able to sustain it and ensure that there's appropriate mechanisms in place, appropriate resources that are tracking some of these aquifer water sources, so that in fact our people are not presented with some challenges in the future. So the only concern I have, Mr. Perron, you highlighted some of the things that I was going to ask you with regards to ongoing efforts with pesticides, the underground tank regulations, also the low sulfur diesel, and providing information through the website. And the acting speaker already alluded to that in terms of making sure that our people are kept in the know. But my concern is we have sufficient laws in place. Now we need to match the mandates with the people resources as well as the equipment that your people have. You alluded to training your people over the course of the last several years. That's excellent. You need to always make sure that the people, your people at EPA, are properly trained so that in fact they can actually go out there and carry out their job on behalf of the people of Guam. We know that most of your resources originate from the US EPA or from federal grants. So now we need to be able to see whether in fact that's sufficient over the course of the next 5 to 10 years to be able to allow your agency to continue to ensure compliance and enforcement of our environmental laws. Because once our water aquifer gets contaminated in any way, shape, or form to the point where the water is no longer consumable based on human standards, then that's certainly going to present some serious challenges. So I encourage you to continue to monitor that from that perspective and see what the local community may have to step up and provide additional resources, whether it's funding for personnel or funding for equipment, so that at least your agency and all of your people have the resources necessary to be able to carry out their responsibilities. So I thank you again for stepping up and offering your assistance, and certainly you complement the board with all of your background and your expertise and your passion for protecting our environment. So thank you, and Tsizus Masi.
Thank you, Senator Aguon. Senator Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Aside from the tremendous character reference that former Senator Sanchez gave, I just also want to commend the administration for continuing the appointment of both an advocate and a subject matter expert. I have the privilege of serving one more term, and as I grow into this role, I see on a greater level more and more, and I tend to grow to appreciate the importance of lay people from the community who are deeply passionate about the issues facing our island, but also to strike that balance with folks who are in the industry, who are well-versed and learned on the issues facing the agency that you're helping to shepherd. Also, as you both could see, the electorate in the last several years, at least this is my opinion, has become more aware. There's a greater social consciousness about the need to protect our land and natural resources, whether it's to redress certain discrepancies of the past or injustices of the past like Agent Orange, but also the little things that end up being big things like illegal dump sites. And so I like to draw some of that attention to you folks as we continue in 2019 to address that in a collaborative manner with the law enforcement entities like GPD and Rev and Tax. I understand there's a little bit of a disconnect in trying to enforce the illegal dump sites and address those things properly. I'd like to go ahead and close that. Well, actually, I'd like to close with something less serious, but still very factual. Former Senator Simon Sanchez, you know, conservation is close to conservatism, and it's also, notwithstanding the Democrat sister of yours, it's also a fundamental tenet of the Republican Party, at least in the early years. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Senator Nelson?
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple of maybe tough questions. And I just, you know, within this term, there were a lot of concerns with the cells that we're developing under GSWA, how we need to open a new cell sometime soon. And Mr. Sanchez mentioned waste to energy. And so I just wanted to know what was both of your stances on waste to energy. And I see, Mr. Perron, you have a lot of CEUs on waste to energy in your dossier, so I was just wondering, what is your stance on that? I mean, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. Some people are concerned about the additional pollution it will cause our island, and
Yes, from my standpoint, I think the pollution aspects of waste to energy have been addressed and really aren't as big a factor as they used to be. For us on Guam, the only issue I have is the economics of it, because you're going to be adding a waste to energy system on top of an existing landfill cost, which we still have a pretty good size bond out there that we're paying. So if we put another solid waste system on top of the existing landfill system, we just have to be sure that the cost is not going to really negatively impact the community. But from a conceptual standpoint, you know, I have nothing against waste to energy, at least after the point of pulling out as many recyclables as you can and just burning the stuff that's not readily recyclable. So I believe that's the US EPA definition, that solid waste can be looked at as you know, as a sustainability item for creating electricity, but only after the fact that you've recycled to the extent possible. So those are the caveats, the cost of it and the recycling aspect. Are you going to burn the recyclables, or are we going to be able to put those back into the market to be used over and over again? Because you burn it, it's a one-time thing. If you recycle it, it can be recycled multiple times. You know, like cardboard or plastics, you can make them into things that can again be recycled after that use is over. So again, those are my only issues, is the recycling aspect of it and the cost. If those are addressed, then I don't have any issues with waste to energy.
Ms. Sanchez.
Yes, and if I may echo that, again, the economics is it's crucial because, again, even with the current system, it can be expensive for Guam Solid Waste and to be a customer of it, and that leads to much illegal dumping here. So if we can't recycle as much as possible and keep our economics down, the illegal dumping will just continue to grow. So I guess as research continues and as we get closer to it, the ideal answer is we hope to choose, and again, knowing that the economics is a big piece of it.
Thank you. Just two other questions. The recycling, Senator Barnes introduced, a couple years back, a bottle bill initiative. And what is the biggest challenge on moving that forward?
Well, there's a couple items that are leading to the, the slow pace at which the bill is being implemented. One of the items in the bill is that we needed the sign-off of the military. Without the sign-off of the military, as far as them participating in the program, then the bill would not be, or the law would not be implemented until such time as the military entered into an agreement to follow the same rules and regs. And I believe we're still going back and forth on some of the rules and regs and the funding mechanism for the startup of the bottle bill, because you're going to need to have some money in place to to fund the initial months of rebating the money to the recycling companies. So you're going to need a startup fund to kick things off, and I believe that's going to be addressed in the RRF rules and regs as far as providing some funding for that. So there's a few other challenges that have come up too recently, which would be the value of recyclables, because the primary component of the bottle bill would be plastic bottles. The value of plastic as a commodity is a negative. It's a negative value. So that will impact the economics of the whole bottle bill, because the recyclers would send the plastic to market and expect to get money from it, and that would help offset some of the cost of the program. But with the current situation of recycling, you're not getting any money for plastic. You're paying people to take plastic. So the whole economics of the bottle bill will have to be looked at again, looked at closer in terms of the value of the commodity that's being collected and how that's going to affect the amount of the deposit. The deposit could have to be increased possibly to 10 cents to accommodate the value of the plastic that's being collected. So there's a few new things that have been come into play here that weren't in play, say, a year or two ago. So it's still being worked on and looked at, but it's moving at a fairly slow pace, unfortunately.
Thank you. I'm thinking, Ms. Sanchez, you probably have this something similar. Yeah. Okay. Well, I have one last question, Mr. Chair, since you brought up the recycling revolving fund. Mm-hmm. About 2 weeks ago, we were here, perhaps 3. The days have been skewed quite a bit for me. But there is a bill in place to take a portion of the recycling revolving fund, a significant portion of a recycling revolving fund, to pay off a supposed job that is done by a certain recycling company. My concern is, what is your stance on that? There were many questions that were put on the table. Some of the actions were also inorganic within the bill. So I just wanted to know, where do you stand with utilizing the recycling revolving fund under EPA for a purpose that is inorganic?
Okay, we have a board meeting this afternoon that the board is going to take up the issue and come up with a position of the board. My personal position is not the board position, but my personal position would be, number one, if there's a debt owed to an individual that the government sincerely and really owes, and it's been validated that there is an actual debt, then the government should honor that debt in some fashion or other. But from the EPA standpoint, my opinion is that we have uses for that recycling revolving fund money. You know, we want to be collecting abandoned vehicles from the villages, white goods. We want to be funding the bottle bill when that comes online. You know, we've got a recycling stimulus component of the revolving recycling fund that will be implemented at some time in the future. And there's just a number of uses of the RRF that will be delineated in the final RRF bill. So I would not be in favor of directing money outside of the rules and regs of the RRF that's being put in place. I think that money, if it's owed, needs to be paid, but from my standpoint, that should be gotten from the general fund or from some other appropriation, and not take the money that's earmarked for, you know, sustainability, zero waste, recycling, education. So I think all those things are important, and we need to stay the course on that and not delay the implementation of those programs in order to pay this other debt, which is really not connected to the RRF in any shape, way, or form that I can see.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say thank you for offering your service. It's practically gratis, because you really don't get to pay the wealth of knowledge that you have, that you bring to the table. So thank you for serving our island community for many years that you have done in the past, and for agreeing to continue on. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Speaker?
I just have two more questions. Sure. There was some news articles about when Guam EPA was considering the GRRP contract or something about it, that the two of you had to recuse yourself, or there was a motion to recuse you from that, any decision making by Guam EPA. And that's because of your business that you run, and because of your affiliation, Flory, with Simon Sanchez's business, which is the same business? All right, so I just want to put on the record, what is your, does your being on the board at EPA pose a conflict with the business that you do on Guam, or vice versa, I guess? Does your business get any kind of advantage from you being on the board at EPA?
From my standpoint, I think it's, based on my time with the board, that I've been able to demonstrate my ability to walk the line, the fine line, whenever there is a conflict, potential conflict. As chairman of the board, I'm not a voting member of the board. I just vote to break ties. That would be and I haven't voted in 8 years. There hasn't been a tie situation. But if there was a tie situation that I had to be the deciding vote, I would just not elect to vote and recuse myself, and just whatever was being voted on would fail then. But I think it's kind of a win-win. I think I'm able to bring a lot of expertise and knowledge to EPA, to Guam EPA, that can be used to help strengthen our knowledge base on recycling, zero waste, solid waste management. And the key too is transparency. The fact that everybody on the board, everybody in the agency knows what I do for a living. And so that's the key part, is make sure everybody knows what you're doing, and this lets your conscience, be your guide, kind of thing. And I have no problem testifying against our own interest, which I have done in the past with the stimulus program that was put in place, which was a $30 payment for every ton of solid waste or recyclables that were shipped off island. I testified that you shouldn't give it to commodities that are self-sustaining already, which we are the largest cardboard recyclers. So I told them cardboard does not need a subsidy. It's doing fine. Use your subsidies for things that need it, like plastic, like possibly scrap metal. And so, I have no problem speaking to what's best for the island and what's best uses of those money, even if it's against personal interest and company interest, because that's the most important thing, is using the money wisely and doing the right thing. So.
Flory, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, conflict of interest hasn't been an issue for me, short of perhaps that incinerator. Okay. When we have members and the the community come to our monthly meetings and they bring up their issues, you know, should there ever be a conflict of interest, we mention it there, and then we can recuse ourselves. But it hasn't really been an issue for us.
Okay. I clarify that. In the past, I guess earlier this year, there have been media reports about notices of violations that have been issued, and that the penalties that were imposed were initially at a rather significant amount, and by the end of the day, those amounts got whittled down to almost nothing. But in addition to that, the part of the, I guess the offset was to go and renovate the agency's bathroom. What kind of involvement does the board have when notices of violations are issued, and then, you know, the violators seem to just walk away? At least that's the way that the media paints it. So maybe if you can comment, if both of you can comment on that.
Sure. Yeah, the amount that's originally put into the notice of violation is the maximum amount allowable under law. So that's the absolute max that the law allows, be it $10,000 a day or $1,000 a day, based on the incident or the violation that occurred. So the starting point is a huge, huge number. And when it would come to the board would be if the agency and the violator would not be able to come to an agreement on a fine or whatever the punishment was going to be. But the idea of using money for fixing the bathrooms and all that sort of thing, that has been terminated. That's no longer something that is allowed to happen based on the internal rules that we've discussed with the administrator. So right now, the only things that are charged to a violator would be the cash fine and the potential of a SEP. It's called a supplemental environmental project, where they can, if it's a solid waste violation, then they'll be assigned a SEP or negotiate a SEP with the administrator to provide a cleanup of an area, provide the disposal cost and the collection cost of a particular dump site, say. So whatever the violation is now, the money will be, or the SEP will be in the area that the violation occurred. Like the Sang Brothers violation, that was a air and recycling violation. So the money that came from that particular fine would be used in the air pollution department, and the SEP that they did was to provide a study material to one of the schools for air pollution and for air quality type issues. So right now, any violators are charged a fine or a SEP, and that money is kept within the realm of the violation that occurred. So, you know, that instance of using it for fixing up the office, that's not going to occur again. That's been squashed. Yeah. So.
And again, with notice of violation, it is the board's desire that the agency works with the offender to come up with the settlement of how they will correct the violation, which is the major issue. Please correct your violation, and then again, how you can contribute to the community with the fine. So we want that the staff settle the NOVs before so that they don't have to come up to the board for our resolution. Because again, it's the matter of we need to correct the violation.
All right, thank you very much. Senator, do you have any? Senator Castro? Speaker? Oh, I'm sorry. Speaker?
Just what can you tell us the status of the rules and regs for the recycling revolving fund? When can we expect those?
Sure. Right now, we've been in communication with BBMR and the Bureau of Statistics and Plans in order to come up with the environmental impact statement. That's not the economic impact statement that's required. So that's the spot we're in right now. So we should be hearing back from BSP shortly on how to go forward with that EIS and look for their feedback and their recommendation how to accomplish that EIS. And so the draft bill or rules and regs are pretty much ready to go. It's just in that particular step. Once that is done, then we can go on to public hearings and AAA process and get with you folks. Okay.
All right. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll deem then your confirmation hearing as having been completed. And we thank you very much for your time here this morning and for your desire to continue serving the community.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senators.
Appreciate it. Now we're going to go ahead and move into, we'll go ahead and give the We're going to go ahead and continue our hearing now with Bill number 364-34, introduced by Senator Frank Aguon. Senator, if you'll go ahead and give an overview of the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This is a subsequent piece of legislation. If we recall, last year there was legislation that was introduced, I believe, by yourself, Mr. Chairman, that would authorize the use of a parcel of property located in Talofofo for a southern sports complex. And then subsequent to that particular authorization and piece of legislation, there was another legislation that required and restricted any long-term lease of property in excess of 5 years. So this is a follow-on legislation taking into consideration those two pieces of mandates, and would allow for any arrangement that is consummated between the Talofofo Mayor's Office, the Municipal Planning Council, as well as the Guam Football Association, that the use of that parcel of property, it would authorize the organizations to be able to enter into a 30-year lease. I do recall, Mr. Chairman, that there has been some discussions about any subsequent extension of that shall be subject to legislative consideration. So obviously that goes without saying, but in this particular case, that was one of the requests by the Guam Football Association, that language be inserted in there so that in fact it's understood that any possibility of an extension would require legislative concurrence. So other than that, Mr. Chairman, this would allow the Guam Football Association, the Talofofo Mayor, to be able to consummate the memorandum of understanding on the use of the 7 acres of parcel property, and to begin their investment in a world-class soccer/football facility for the entire island. And I know there's a lot of focus on the south. So I just wanted to provide that explanation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have people signing up to provide oral testimony. We have Joe Roberto and Valentino Sengil. Mayor Taidegui, I noticed you've signed up, but it didn't indicate if you were going to give oral testimony. And then Mika Polino, you're in favor, but were you going to give oral testimony also? No? Okay, so Mr. Roberto and Mr. Sengil. All right, since the mayor has joined us at the table, I'm going to go ahead and defer to him and we'll start off our testimony with the mayor.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Nelson, Senator Talai, Senator Aguon, and Will Castro. For the record, my name is Vicente Estaitagui, Mayor of Talofofo. This morning, I come before this committee to inform all concerned that the residents of Talofofo support the intent of Bill number 364-34 CR. The construction of the proposed soccer field is a high-interest issue. To qualify this, the Department of Interior has awarded the Mayor's Office $500,000 grant to convert existing baseball field into an official baseball stadium. The scope work includes construction of office space, locker room, and bathroom. Because this project is funded by grant, there is a sense of urgency to complete before the grant expires. Talofofo Baseball Field is also the home for the Southern Cowboys. I am happy to inform this committee that effort to secure land for the construction of football field is successful. MAU is currently in process with DYA Director Mr. Peter Ada authorizing the construction of football field. The location is at the DYA Cottage Home. I don't foresee any negative impact granting a 30-year lease into the memorandum of agreement with Guam Soccer Association. My major concern is Public Law 34-60 gave the developer 10 years to develop the property. Because of the situation we are in, I aggressively beg the developer not to take advantage of this time frame. We need to move forward expeditiously. The passage of Bill 364-34, stakeholders are looking forward to see civil work in progress as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Taitagui. We're going to go ahead and go with Joe Roberto.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. Hafade, thank you for your valuable time this morning, as it truly is appreciated. Back in October of 2017, you all passed a law, Public Law 34-60, which our soccer club, the Shipyard Wolverines, greatly appreciates, as it brings us here today and provides the opportunity for the GFA to administer funds from FIFA or AFC to begin a project which will positively affect thousands of our kids from Jotnya to Inarahan and beyond. After some research, this facility will directly and positively affect St. Francis with approximately 265 kids, GAA, Pre-K to High School 81, Talofofo Elementary 258, Notre Dame High School 275, Inarahan Middle School 531, Inarahan Elementary School 268, MU Lujan Elementary 619. A total of approximately 2,300 students closest to the property, and this does not include Southern High, which has a count of approximately 1,500 students. Besides our youth, there are several other positives examples that would benefit from this facility. Our local contractors to be hired, architects, engineers, and so forth. Outside monies without affecting local taxes, sports tourism, getting even more kids off the street. Also, right next door to the Talofofo Elementary School, who would hopefully make use of a portion of our facility during school hours, and so much more. Please work with our GFA leadership, who will provide our soccer club a home, as our Talofofo Ranger family has been very kind to us over very many years, playing on their baseball field, as it truly is meant for baseball. Thank you. Best wishes.
Thank you, Mr. Roberto. Mr. Sangil?
Thank you, Senators. My name is, you could call me Tino Sangil, okay? You don't have to call me Valentino. Everyone just calls me Tino. So 2005, we started the football field up at Hardeman. And as of now, we've completed majority of the infrastructure that was required of us to do. But the big need in this community is more fields. So we decided that we were not going to pave the parking lot because we were going to use it for facilities island-wide. We see that there's a big need for additional soccer fields because of the because of teams playing American football, rugby, and soccer on the same field. So what I did was I went back to FIFA and I said, we need additional funding. So we came out with a master plan 2 years ago that FIFA approved, that we're looking at building 7 facilities island-wide with the funding of FIFA and the AFC Confederation. As of now, we have been approved for 2 facilities, one in Aguon, which we're going to be currently building next year in the first quarter, along with another facility in Ordet, Chalampago, which FIFA has bought the property right next to the Ordet Elementary School. This was not a property that was given by the government, but was outright purchased by FIFA, because there's no property here in the central area that the government could provide us. So I told them that this property is very important because we need to serve the central area of Guam. So now Joe and the mayor has come up to me and asked me if we can provide a facility in Talofofo, which will cover both ends of the southern part of Guam. The other area that we're looking at improving is Jigo, NCS, and also Dedido. But right now, the concentration is on these 3 fields because we have the funding for it. And as you can see, AFC and FIFA will be arriving here. Hopefully, we know confirmation that AFC will be here next week on the 23rd. So I'd like to invite them to see if they can meet with you and to show them the master plan that we have come up and the funding source that's being provided for Guam. There's millions of dollars that are going to be pouring into Guam in the next 10 years. Because of the new sponsorship contract with FIFA and AFC, all these fundings are being channeled into Guam. The other thing that we have that we're given is now all our national teams are traveling for free. It doesn't cost the parent any money to fund. There's no more car washes, there's no more bake sales. Everything now is funded through the FIFA program. So our athletes now just have to train and get better and compete. We have also gotten funding for our academy. Before, we used to charge $50 for our academy, but now the academy is fully funded. So now we're looking for the best players for the academy and not for players that can afford the academy. So everything is positive coming GFA's way. This coming, the end of this month, we're opening up a new gym at GFA because it was very important for us to make sure that our athletes are strength and condition and also recovery. So now if you go up to the GFA facility, we have that in place. We're concentrating on our national team because our national team provides the resources for us to get better, and then it shows leadership in all aspects of the environment and the community. We also met with the DOE Deputy Director on the 31st of October. We're looking at implementing an elementary school program, and I've already secured the funding for that, so now they're looking into it, and it's providing $40,000 a year for that program. The program is for 3 years, so we're looking at starting it at the northern end, the central, and then the southern end, so it's a 3-year program. All of this funding is channeled through FIFA and AFC and through the EFF program. So all this money that you see will be coming in the next couple of years. But starting this year, or next year, our funding for next year is $5 million. So all of that will be used to build these facilities island-wide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Aguon, sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And Mayor and Joe, thank you for your testimony this morning. Tino, thank you for highlighting really the contributions of FIFA to our island community, especially with the sport of soccer. You know, one thing that's really very heartening is whenever we drive by, or my wife and I or family members drive by the Harmon Sports Complex, and we see that entire field filled with little munchkins, players, and also some of the elders, and then a lot of family members. You know, it's that kind of environment that continues to foster family events. And to see that, in fact, that particular internationally recognized field was constructed since 2005, it only bodes very well for something very similar, either at Ordet or at Aguon or in Talofofo, and eventually up north to look at constructing additional facilities. I think it's special to note that not only do we have some great athletes that compete on the international level and also on the national level, but hopefully with the nurturing of our younger generation, our youth, beginning with our public schools, that we'll be able to see Guam win a international championship and bring that home, that notoriety, because it's all about developing the sport. And part of the sport is we always reflect back on the field of dreams where you build it and they will come. Well, in this particular case, when you look at a facility that you're looking at constructing at Talofofo based on the authorization that will be granted by this particular proposal, you look at the facility that you will be constructing in Aguon and then also eventually in Ordet. Really the future bodes very, very well for, I'm going to say, my great-grandkids. Because my grandkids are already getting up in age. So in that particular case, I congratulate FIFA. I congratulate all the advocates for the sport of soccer, because it all starts with that vision. And there was one of our former colleagues who granted the use of public property in Harmon through legislation back in 2005, and I was very pleased to have supported that piece of legislation, and it started the ball rolling. Now we have a world-class facility over at Harmon, and then eventually some of these others. So congratulations in bringing the resources to Guam. Congratulations in looking at other locations to be able to continue to develop the sport. And also, I know, Tino, you were kind of hesitant about also sharing that there's a brand new, in spite of the recent storm, there's a brand new soccer facility that was also funded by FIFA in Saipan that a lot of the youth are now enjoying, and hopefully will be appropriately restored after the storm. So thank you again, and we look forward to the eventual construction of these facilities and the sports for my great-grandchildren. This is Masin. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator. Speaker?
Thank you. Thank you all for your being here this morning. I know there's other people here also in support of the soccer field. I want to acknowledge, first of all, that FIFA's contributions to Guam and the FIFA leadership on Guam, the Soccer Federation, or GFA, for your leadership and bringing this to Guam and managing it while it's here. And I also want to acknowledge the mayor's management of the Talofofo facilities currently, allowing soccer to be played despite it being a baseball field, and really helping all of our villages, not just Talofofo, to have access to these fields. I have a couple questions, and the way the bill's written is, it says it's going to authorize the mayor to enter into an MOU, but there's no MOU attached to this bill. So I was wondering if this MOU is ready and if it could be reviewed by the legislature and attached to the bill. And so it's this specific MOU that we are agreeing to or not, because...
If I may, Mr. Chairman, yes, there has been a MOU that has been finalized. We did not want to put incorporate it as an attachment, because otherwise it would be viewed as a final version. And if this legislation was adopted and passed into law, then that would be verbatim the requirement. So we wanted to ensure that the Guam Football Association, as well as the mayor's office, has flexibility to be able to make appropriate amendments within the confines of the existing law. But we can provide, or if I can ask Tino or Joe, if you can provide the chairman a copy of the proposed memorandum of understanding between the mayor's office as well as the Guam Football Association, that would be appreciated. And just one further comment, Mr. Chairman, the field, the sports complex that will be constructed has already been identified and to be named after one of our soldiers who passed away in the village of Talofofo. And I'll leave that up to you, Mayor, if you would like to share who it would be named after. Mayor, did you want to share? Major?
I think we can save that. We can get to that. Let's finish the speaker's questions, please.
Okay. So, for example, I'd like to know the terms of the MOU that are being anticipated. And is this MOU going to be for the entire 7 acres, 7.7 acres? Mayor, is that what you intend? Yes?
7 point something acres of land,
Okay.
right behind the school.
All right. And then the news, when they talked about this bill, said there would be a tax credit given to GFA or FIFA. I'm not sure, but I don't see that in this bill, so I'm wondering if you can explain that.
No, sorry, Senator, the news was misinformed. That was for the southern property at Aguon. There's still a $200,000 tax credit there, but I know because of the shortage of funding here in the government, we're not looking at asking for that tax credit because we already identified the source of funding for that facility. So the FIFA representatives already, I've informed them that the government is cash strapped, and then we're not looking at asking for that. So all of that has already been identified. The RFPs are going to be going out hopefully by next month because they're going to be here hopefully by this month reviewing all the contracts, and they'll send it all out.
For Aguon.
For Aguon.
Okay, so for Aguon, that was government property, and also the government extended tax credits to build that facility.
No, they gave us the $200,000 as a tax credit, but we're not going to use it. We're not going to use it.
You're not?
We're not.
Oh, okay.
Because we know the situation in the government. So I went back to the board.
So not even for Aguon? You won't use that for Aguon?
No, we identified the full funding for Aguon
All
already.
right. Okay. So that's what the mayor means by grants then, is that this is being funded without tax credit. It's being funded by grant, by FIFA.
This facility in Talofofo is going to be fully funded by the FIFA and AFC funds.
Okay.
Okay. So we identified the funds for infrastructure for the next 10 years. So already we anticipate that the funding that we're receiving will be enough to fund all these 7 facilities and to maintain them.
Okay, and then they keep going back and forth between talking about a multi-purpose facility versus soccer. Which is it?
No, it's just a soccer facility.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah. All right, and then I'm thinking that this 30-year provision would grant to GFA or FIFA. Who would be the party?
So what happens is, in order for us to get the funding, the property has to be under GFA. Okay. Because FIFA will fund it, and so they don't. In the past, FIFA has experienced that they gave money to properties, worldwide, and then all of a sudden they said, "Get out! It's not yours anymore. It belongs to us after it's completed."
Right. So that's why GFA wants this 30-year set in stone.
Yes. But as we're not looking at building it within. We're looking at building it within 2 years because the process, it takes a lot of paperwork to go through FIFA. But once we identify the property, of course we have to give it to the legal. They see all the documentations. Then we have to do the blueprints, and then it goes through their legal department and through the funding sources, and then all the bids. So usually it takes about a year to do that. If you were to pass the bill to allow me to have the property, we'll set it already in place for this coming year. Then hopefully by the end of the year, we should have the funding for start of projects maybe by 2020.
All right. So the biggest concern, I guess, is that when we pass a bill that gives 30 years per this MOU, so that would be 30 years to GFA.
Yes.
As opposed to under the control of the mayor anymore, under control of the Municipal Planning Council of Talofofo. So their testimonies that they that's okay. They support that. And I guess I just want, because we don't have the MOU in front of us, I just want to ask, so teams that are allowed to use this field, what if they're not GFA members? So they're just like pickup games. Can they do that? Not.
Yes, so that's why Joe was explaining to you, was all the schools also are going to utilize
partner with the schools to use the fields during the day.
Yes.
Right. That's a partnership between GFA and DOE. So it would be under the terms that GFA states, right?
Yes.
But we don't have any kind of agreement like that in front of us.
Yeah, but
so it's a future agreement.
Yeah, that's all. The whole purpose was to make sure that the fields are built and that we take away, because right now everyone's using like GW's field for football and soccer at the same time. So we're going to alleviate the soccer teams from now playing in GW. They'll come over to these fields that we built all over the island. So soccer will be played on all these facilities island-wide.
All right. Do you think that GFA might have requirements that would impede? I know, the program's very successful. So many kids are involved, like the senator said, but would it impede use by people in Talofofo, I guess, for the field?
No, because it's going to be built for the Talofofo community. Once it's built, it's going to be under, pretty much under the Wolverines. But they will be the end user of it. But also, we are also going to enter an MOU with the schools nearby, like what's their school? St. Francis, Notre Dame. They'll get to utilize that facility.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Castro, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to state for the record, I support the intent of the bill for two primary reasons. I do have some critical questions, though, that we can enter into the record. And out of courtesy to the author and the chairman, you can either respond here or submit it in writing with the prior request. Okay, so first reason is I'm a huge proponent of partnerships with not-for-profit entities when providing government services, or in this case, a capital improvement project. So that's the first thumbs up from me. The second one is, and of course I'm partial, I'm a football dad also, having been raised on the gridiron though, and hopefully my daughter could take up soccer. But so you have that in your favor, because as the former vice speaker once said, Senator Aguon, outside of the family and the church, I'm a firm believer that it's the sports entities, that extended family, that can make all the difference in determining the development of a child, male or female. My questions for you, and again, as I grow into this role, they become clearer and clearer in my mind for the purpose of protecting the public's interest. First question would be, is there precedent outside the construction of new schools for this type of arrangement where we gave public lands and it was financed by an outside entity for sports facilities like this one over a 30-year period? And I think you did mention a couple, so I'll refer back to the prime author to get those documents so I can come up to speed with that. Second, what is the anticipated cost for the facility? Third, who will make decisions towards determining who would construct or maintain, construct the facility, maintain the facility, provide maybe equipment and supplies and so forth. And granted, as I said first, I understand that could be maintained in part or in whole by the not-for-profit entity, and I can respect that. I just would like to see that articulated. The repayment source, it was mentioned that FIFA and or GFA, so as the vice speaker, the acting speaker had asked if that's going to be built into the MOA. I would assume it is. I'd like to see that as well. Also, maybe you could answer this after my last two questions. Could you read into the record the officers of the GFA? And the reason why this is important for me is to establish that we retain local control or at least direct influence over the use of very limited Guam lands. And what happens, the last question, before my final and closing statement, what happens in the event maybe the funding source, whether it's FIFA or GFA, defaults? What happens in that instance? I'm really not versed in this area at all, and it'll help educate me. And in closing, Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you all publicly for what you do. Mr. Roberto, you gained my admiration and respect for your advocacy for the community of Talofofo, but also all of Hadza. So thank you for that. And the Vice Speaker, the former Vice Speaker, Senator Aguon, did mention also that you either have intentions or already have adopted or have decided to name the facility after the late Major Henry Ofashar. As you know, that's the uncle to incumbent Senator Michael St. Nicholas. Henry was personally known to me. He's a close family friend, one of the best friends of the mother of my 3 kids. And so you couldn't have named it after a better and more deserving person who proudly wore the uniform and who's very learned. I'm very proud of Henry's accomplishments and his family. So thank you. Thank you all. And you can elect to answer it, really leave it at the discretion of the chairman. But I certainly would like to request that it be submitted in writing as part of the committee report. And that'll save me a lot of time and effort on the floor, not having to convince myself that this is something I want to do. I'm convinced with the intent. If I get those documents in advance, then you should have a vote in the affirmation. Thank you, Mr. Sangil, and thank you to your family, too. I know your brother, the FD graduate. Thank you.
Thank you. Since the senator has requested that that information be provided as to be part of the committee report, the report will not be reported out until that information is provided. Okay.
Thank you.
Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The memorandum of understanding that that was stated that is completed, what is the basis or what is the basis of this MOU between, if it's DYA and who are the parties involved?
Yeah.
Anyone can answer if they.
DYA?
Well, it says right here, MOU is currently in process.
That's for the for the construction of a football field. That's a different project.
Oh.
They all tie in, see, with the baseball field, so they
I'm
can move out,
thinking-
so they can clear out the field, see, so we can convert that thing to a stadium.
Tracking. Okay, I'm thinking football field.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
FUTB, not FOOT. Okay, but you do have an MOU, no? Is there an MOU specifically
Yes,
for?
yes, the MOU now has been reviewed by the AG's office. Once they approve it, me and Pete will sign it.
Yeah, so
sign
what
it
is the basis of it, Mayor? What is the basis of the MOU? Just perhaps a
Just to
general
give me,
description.
authorize me to use the land to build the football field for the Southern Cowboys.
Okay, and other than the use of the land, is there anything else that commits the government to either FIFA or GFA?
I'm sorry, Senator, I think he's talking about American football. We're talking about soccer. There's 2 different.
So there is no MOU that's going to be used for the soccer field?
You're talking about.
No, I'm talking about the soccer field. Is there
No,
an
that's,
MOU for
you
the
got
soccer field?
Yeah, the soccer field MOU.
I say
Joe,
soccer.
in process.
Okay, the MOU that he's preferring with DYA is American football.
Yes, I'm tracking.
Okay. Yeah, so that's.
Is there another MOU?
Oh,
or-
I don't know.
That's what I'm asking.
Our MOU.
For the
Our
soccer
MOU.
field.
For the
There
soccer.
was a statement.
for
made-
soccer we do.
Yes. What is the MOU?
The MOU is with Senator Frank.
Yeah, I
Hagan.
know. What is the basis of the MOU? Because we don't have
So,
it in front of
so
us.
the MOU is where the MOU is the mayor is going to turn over the property to GFA, and then GFA is going to get the funding to build the soccer facility for them. So it's going to be grants through FIFA and through the AFC Confederation.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just curious because, as it was stated earlier, it's not put in place with the bill because we don't want it to be something concrete and something that can be interchangeable. So I just wanted to see if there was anything addition other than what the bill is stating that would bind the government to further obligation. And so, is there?
No, there isn't.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, I got to say, I like this bill because it overcomes a couple of hurdles. One, if it passes, then a decision would have been made that yes, that property, that 7 acres, will be leased out to your organization for 30 years. And it gets around the requirement of the law, which otherwise would require that anything beyond 5 years, you have to let the community and prospective developers be aware of it, and maybe somebody else can offer a better deal than what FIFA may be offering. But the bill gets around it and basically says, never mind that, we're going to lease it out for 30 years, and we're going to lease it out to FIFA. So, you know, it kind of like, you know, never mind the chase, just get to the cheese. And that's basically what this bill does. What I do have a concern with, though, is that the legislature does not well, basically, this bill is basically saying, you two guys go ahead and enter in some kind of MOU that is mutually convenient for you. But the legislature has no say as to what's in that. And that's the kind of the same situation that the Guam Raceway Park is in right now. And so what the legislature did in that particular bill that's going to be reported out is it's going to make the decision, are they going to lease that property out for, you know, 50 years that they're asking for? But it has one provision in there. It says, go and make your lease agreement, but it comes back to the legislature for the legislature to either approve it or disapprove it. And at least, you know, I mean, I hear a lot of good things here, and I certainly have a lot of faith and confidence in all of you who are making the statements here at the table this morning, but there's no guarantee that you're going to be here tomorrow. So I don't know what the next guy is going to propose, and unless we have that in writing, and it has at least, you know, so at the very least, I think this legislature has that responsibility to at least be able to look at what is this agreement that we're getting into to lease out that public land for 30 years to that organization. So I'll just, you know, make it known here for the record. I do have concerns about that. I mean, we don't even have a copy of a draft MOU, and you don't want to provide it because then it might fix, you know, it kind of boxes you into those parameters. So, so I'll just leave it at that, and at least you know where I stand with respect to the bill. But there are good aspects to the bill, and so Senator, did you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for clarification purposes, the MOU was not included in here, and based on my initial statement, so that it does not tie in any additional restrictions, because the MOU as proposed right now is already consistent with Public Law 34-60. It complies with every single parameter established by that authorization legislation for the use of this property. But Mr. Chairman, if you would like, and if I can request officially, if you can in writing present a copy of the proposed MOU either from the mayor's office or from the Guam Football Association to the committee chair, so that it can be incorporated into the legislation, and if the decision of the body would be to adopt the authorization contained in Bill 364-34, inclusive of the memorandum of understanding, that is not an issue, at least from my perspective. My perspective is, let's allow the organization to be able to proceed and invest these resources, develop that property, and allow for our southern residents and the rest of the island community to be able to have access and use of the sports facility, the soccer, FUTBOL, soccer/football field. So, Mr. Chairman, if that's your preference, then by all means, it will be forwarded to you as a chair, and then we can proceed from there, because to me, the legislature sets the parameters. Any MOU has to be consistent with that, and it still has to go through the process of AG verifying that it's consistent with the authorized legislation, and then also to the chief executive for final signature. So I would like to put that request forward so that the chairman has access to that proposal. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Roberto.
Thank you. One of the things, and one reason why there was a sort of red flag before when the law or bill was introduced was just a couple words. When we saw it, it had the words "not to exceed," and just those three words almost changed everything. As an investor myself into certain things, if I was to invest in a piece of property for 30 years and never again, not a day after, I would have to take a step back. So we had requested, and I believe the MOU or MOA is actually done, but it couldn't have been presented without first amending the bill, you may, and we suggested shall be for a period of 30 years, and with the option to extend by the authorization of the legislature at that time. So it's just one of those issues where here's the MOU, it's complete, but if FIFA sees the words not to exceed, so there's an expiration date, they're going to pour millions of dollars into a facility, and then there's that expiration of life or use, then what happens to the sport thereafter?
Well, then if that was the issue, then probably an approach to it would have been to amend that language, to delete or to add the additional language that extensions would be permitted.
Yeah.
But as it stands right now, I mean, the way
Correct.
the way it's written is just basically saying, go ahead, Hamzulamun.
Yeah. So if that's all, we could eliminate the words not to exceed, and then with the after 30 years expiration date, we could come back to the table, whoever may be here, to request for an extension.
Just for your information, Mr. Chairman, if I may, and Mr. Roberto, the reason why the proposed language was not inserted and subject to an extension by the legislature is because legal counsel advised that it's not necessary. Yeah, you know, it would terminate after 30 years, and if in fact the organization would like to extend it, then it would still have to come before this body. So, so this was vetted through legal counsel.
Okay.
Okay. Sure.
Could you just tell me, Tino, how many acres did you purchase in Chalampago?
We purchased 8 acres.
8. And how many acres are you using in Aguon for soccer only?
12 acres.
12 for soccer?
Yes.
How many acres are you using for soccer up at Harmon?
19.
Those are all the active fields take up 19 acres?
Yes. In fact, the field up in Harmon, it's overused already. That's why we have to go and build more. There's not enough room. We have so many teams that are requesting, and we provide all of that even for the school leagues. So everybody utilizes the soccer field up there.
I know that, but I'm just looking at the area. So there's no way we could reduce the area for GFA and allow the mayor to continue to use part of that 7.7 acres. You need all of it?
Well, yes, because we're looking at building maybe 2 fields, because one will be a practice field and one of them will be a match field.
All right, and then do you foresee, I guess based on your experience, do you foresee a cost to the schools to use this? Do you charge them?
We charge them, but it's very minimal. Leo Palace, I think, charges double of what we charge, and their facility is not as, what we have up there, where we have artificial turf and they have natural grass, and we have the parking and all that. So the cost for the schools is only $100 a match, which is very reasonable, even with the use the lights. So it's real.
All right, and then the teams that use this field, they would be part of GFA, and that they also have a fee. Is there a fee involved? They pay GFA like a membership?
The membership is, everyone laughs at our membership because our membership is only $50 a year. Compared to the U.S., when the military families come out here, they ask me, how much is it? And I said, $50 a year, and they go, wow. In the U.S., they charge over $600.
All right, okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right, I don't have any further questions, so we're going to go ahead and we'll deem Bill 364 as having been duly heard, and I, with the assistance of the sponsor, we'll try and get the bill, the committee report done. Did you have some comments?
I just have one more thing to say. This coming December 1st, 3rd, and 5th, we'd like to invite the legislature over to the Guam Football Association. We will be hosting the second round of the EFF tournament, and the teams that will be coming is the Chinese Women's World Cup team. They'll be competing against Hong Kong, Mongolia, and Chinese Taipei. So we'd like to invite you to come and see the matches. It's all free, and The matches are going to be, I think, at 11 and 3 o'clock. So this is another example of what GFA is doing to bring in sports tourism. And in the future, we have also been asked to host future tournaments next year. So also next year is the start of the World Cup. So on June, I'm heading over to KL to do the draw, and we'll find out who will be playing for the World Cup. So there'll be 4 matches here in Guam for the World Cup. And of course, all the television rights have been, the TV companies, like the different companies like ESPN has been asking us to bid on our TV rights so they can show it worldwide. So this will be another example of what GFA has been doing in the coming years.
Thank you very much. So there being no further comments, the committee then will adjourn. Thank you.